here's something odd. While the tragic subject of plane crashes is still fresh on everybody's minds, do you remember when that Malaysian Airlines flight disappeared? Wait, it was in 2014. To this day, we still don't even know what happened, in part because the aviation industry uses a radar-based tracking system. It's simply not up to do the job. The current system leaves 70% of the planet uncovered and requires planes to frequently check in with infrastructure on the ground. You're not tracking the plane so much as the plane tracks itself, which obviously causes problems if something goes wrong. Enter Iridium Communications, which is commonly viewed as a satellite phone company. Next week, Iridium's rolling out an amazing new service called Aireon, where the company will use its satellites to keep an eye on aircraft. It's a tracking system that actually tracks planes from above. We know Iridium's doing well. That's one reason the stock is up 43% for the year. And I think this one, well, I got to tell you, the service could be a nice kicker. So let's take a closer look with Matt Desch. He's the CEO of Iridium Communications to learn more about this Aireon service and what it means for the future of his company. Mr. Desch, welcome back to Mad Money. Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you.
Have a seat. Well, Matt.
Thanks, Jim.
I don't know, almost a decade ago, you came on the show and you laid out a vision, and the vision seemed almost too good to be true. You had to spend billions of dollars, put up all these satellites, and then after that, you would reap the benefits. We're about to reap the benefits, aren't we?
We are. It's amazing what happens when you finish climbing that mountain of capital that you have to do. We grew very well over the last 8 years since I last saw you.
Sure, you have more than 1 million people.
I mean, we almost doubled our bottom line during that time, but during that time, we were spending a lot of money to replace our network. Well, as of 2 months ago, the last satellite went in, and we have a 10-year capital holiday here where we are going to spend, a minimal amount of money really over that time. So our free cash flow is just going to really expand dramatically.
It is, without you, I mean, it really is kind of primitive, right? I mean, I understand that you were also, you were able to track some of what happened between the Ethiopian airline and the Indonesian in this terrible recent 2 crashes.
Yeah, just so each one of our brand new satellites, and we have 66 in orbit, have a special payload about this big, that Aireon, and it can hear the transmission second by second of every transponder in every airplane, sending out its exact precise location, speed, distance.
Everyone in the world.
Well, everyone that has been installed, but the FAA and others have mandated that every airplane that flies in service, which is certainly every airliner, like at the U.S. or Europe, should have this box on by the end of this year. So almost everybody really has one of these things on them. Certainly the Ethiopian Air one did, the Lion Air one recently did, even the MH370 one did, but it was turned off. But nothing could hear it anyway because there were only ground systems. So radar has evolved to ground systems. We thought, what if we use this incredible real estate we have, a whole planetary umbrella around the planet, to be able to listen to those all in real time? That's when we created Aireon, which is a joint venture between us and a couple other air navigation service providers, and they're now almost ready to launch their service to track every airplane and let air traffic controllers give more efficient service. It's not just about safety, it's about efficiency.
But I did read that Iridium was involved in trying to figure out what happened with these 2 down planes.
In a small way, we were. I mean, I'm proud that the system has been in operation here. It's going to go live for paying traffic in a few weeks here, in a week or 2. But at the time, we heard, if you will, the satellite picked up the second-by-second transmission of the Ethiopian Air. When the FAA asked us for that data, and we're able to compare it to the data we provided for the Lion Air, they could see very quickly that these,
similar.
And literally within an hour or 2, they said, this is the same thing, and we need to ground these airplanes. So, even without the system being turned on live, which will be soon, it's.
To me, you're being too humble. I mean, the FAA was trying to figure out what to do, and then you guys came along. Now, but that's one small part. You've got a huge commercial enterprise. There are many, many people. We think there's cell towers everywhere, but it's really untrue. I mean, this service, how much of the world is covered by cell towers versus what you can do?
Maybe 10 to 15% or so at most.
Really?
And I've been involved since the first generation, way long ago. And it hasn't expanded that much. Even today, as we talk about 5G, which is exciting, I can't wait to get one of those too. It's still all going in the same places, which is where primarily people are, in cities, and towns, and on roads. But they're still the same areas of drop call. And when you get into the oceans, or you get in the air, or you get across the way, which people might not be, but packages are.
Right.
Containers are, and trains are, and fishing vessels are and airplanes are, that's where we fill in.
Well, Matt, what happens now if you have a CapEx holiday and you're just signing people up and something? The cash flow is going to be amazing.
We're not really like another, if you look at all the satellite companies that are out there, most of them use geostationary satellites, and they have big CapEx programs, and every year they do it. There's nobody else like Iridium that has this periodic CapEx that creates really high free cash flows. For the next 10 years, we're going to really throw off a lot of cash.
Dividends, buyback, what are we thinking here?
Well, that's what we're excited to finally be thinking about.
Maybe it's going to be like a utility that pays a really good dividend one day.
Well, probably more like a tower REIT than we are a satellite company.
Okay, so like American Tower, but an amazing stock.
You think about those kind of companies that really have more like our financial profile maybe than we are like the other satellite companies. And I think that's maybe what investors are starting to appreciate, that perhaps we shouldn't evaluate us as the most expensive satellite stock. Maybe we're a lot more like these other companies with, very high conversion and free cash flow, CapEx intensity, those sorts.
I'm going to congratulate you because I believed in you then, and it paid off. And look at the gains this year, and I think it is just beginning. I mean, you're in that sweet spot just now.
Exciting place to be.
All right. That is Matt Desch, CEO of Iridium Communications. Great to understand what their role was in these terrible, tragic air accidents. But remember also, I mean, this could be like American Tower, which we liked for a very long time and still do. Mad Money's back after the break. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.